Hello, everyone. It's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to Lost in the Wasteland, where I get a chance to talk to a particular person and get their perspective on movies. And I have a special friend here, my friend Joe, and he's going to introduce himself a little bit, and we're going to talk about some movies.
Hello, everybody. Joe here.
Joe and I know each other from grad school, so you're all you people out there are going to meet a lot of people who went to Rider University. So
Actually, as I'm speaking, I'm wearing my threads. I'm representing.
look at that. I'm shamelessly plugging.
There you go,
Go
man.
watch my videos.
Click and subscribe to the channel for more great Wasteland review content.
Thank you for the shameless plug, Joe.
I appreciate
Always
it.
enjoy it.
And if you ever curious about checking out some artwork and some thoughts on animation, which I was pretty big in a couple years ago, there's always my YouTube channel, Joey.T Cartoon.P, or you can find me on Instagram under that handle, Joey.T Cartoon.P. For all that wonderful, animation goodness and artwork.
Yep.
Do 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 do.
I enjoy looking at your art, so I'm always looking out for it. So we're gonna get things started with, that question that everybody gets asked when you're talking about movies. Joe, what's your favorite film?
So, when thinking about my favorite movie, I always think about the impact it leaves on me. I think about how it changes me as a person. I think about how it makes me think of the world that I see. And that's what good artwork does. You're given a nice painting or a good book that really makes you think. And for me, that movie will always be Raging Bull. A little bit of background. So the movie is, if you're not familiar with it, it's pretty well known, but I'll give a little bit of background to it. Martin Scorsese directed a black and white biopic on the boxer Jake LaMotta, and it's based off of his autobiography, I believe.
I think so.
I think so too. And basically, it is a wonderful drama and tragedy. It's considered one of the biggest method acting movies, whereas it really took the idea of what a method actor does. With Robert De Niro, who went from basically being in the top physique he could be in to eventually gaining 60 pounds to show the real life transformation of a boxer who was at the top of his game to eventually become a lounge comedian of his own club. It's got all the wonderful Martin Scorsese trademarks that you see in a lot of his movies. But more importantly, it has those moments that really makes you think about what it's like to really be the characters in this movie are so complex. You hate some of these characters. You love some of these characters. You feel bad for some of these characters. And then you're actually terrified at some of these characters, all in the same scene sometimes. Yeah. The one moment in that movie that always sticks to me, are actually three moments. That's how much I love this movie. Is a scene where Joe Pesci plays his brother, and they have a confrontation of infidelity with his wife. I guess that's the best way I could describe it. That's one scene that always sticks out to me because it shows two people with two ideas and really changes them. And the moment I saw this movie was probably one of those moments that actually got me into changing my life a little bit. It actually got me into wanting to go and become a licensed clinician, a licensed psychotherapist, because it really made me understand that people are complex. People make bad decisions, but ultimately people are redeemable, and people are just anybody. They're just people in general. It's one of those movies that really changed me, and to this day, I still love it. I watch it every year.
Awesome. So here's a fun fact. So I watched Raging Bull for the first time in high school during cinema class.
Yeah.
And I hated it.
Yeah.
And I hated it for years. And I never rewatched it. And then sometime after college, it took me to sit down and watch it. And as an adult, I appreciate it in a whole different level than 16-year-old Shane was not ready for Raging Bull.
Yeah. And definitely because it is one of those movies where it's you really can't get behind some of these characters. They say things and act a certain way where they do some things that are pretty pretty despicable. But ultimately, they are not. You know, they're complex characters, and that's what good characters are. So give me 1 second. I just needed to let someone know I need 20 minutes.
Now, while you're doing that, so I'm going to shamelessly plug something else. Along with going out and watching Raging Bull, you should also watch Raging Fred. So taking all the screaming
Oh,
and cursing of Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci put over Fred and Barney from the Flintstones.
well, that was back in like when E-Bombs World was like really, really big.
Oh man, Raging Fred was hilarious. Just having Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble like throwing the F word at each other. Like back in high school, I think I was still at the point where it just like I wanted to like good people in movies. And as you grow up and have a greater appreciation for the complexities of art, I think at least I became more comfortable with like everyone in this movie is pretty despicable, but it's an incredible ride.
It really is.
Who
And it's like, you know, changes like the way filmmaking was in a really good light, you know.
Scorsese, and watching those boxing scenes and like the sound like a lion roaring as they're like punching each other and the flash bulbs are going up and like Jake LaMotta's up against the ropes and just that exaggerated wide angle of like he is completely out of it and that guy's gonna kill him.
And you know, like, you know, Scorsese always likes to drop like a religious metaphor into his movies, but like when you're watching that, it's literally like a fight between good and evil, where like the camera pointing up to Sugar Ray paints him like an angel, whereas the camera's pointing down on LaMotta, making him seem like this demon, where it's like the lighting is I don't know the technique for it. I'm not gonna act like I know the technique for it. Whereas steam is coming up behind him, but ultimately it just makes him look like a demon, you know. And it's some really interesting contrast.
And it's like, who wouldn't want to go on like a Mediterranean cruise and pack on like 50 pounds for a job and get paid for it?
Yeah, they literally described it as like, you know, one moment I'm like at the top of my physique to like stuffing my face with pasta.
Yep, ate all the pasta. Now, Joe, what's your earliest memory of going to the movies?
Oh, this is an easy one. So I was maybe, I would say maybe like 4 or 5 years old. Two memories come to mind. One was like, you know, one of those penny theaters. Remember how they would just like show movies for like really low prices for kids? And I'm pretty sure they do that. I don't know how much they do that now with COVID. And one of them was Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. And the second one, like the big movie going experience that I remember as a kid, was Casper. And that movie always stuck with me for some reason.
Casper.
Oh yeah.
I remember having some Casper movies on VHS. Those ones from the 90s and everything. That's great.
I was just obsessed with ghosts afterwards, you know, like I mean, because of that.
It's like Joey could have been a paranormal investigator or something like that. That would have been fun, right?
But you know, it also made me realize how disturbing it is that a kid-friendly character is dead. It's just a dead kid.
Dead kid.
That always stuck with me for some reason. It's like Casper's a dead kid, you know?
Those are the best kids movies though. They have like these dark things and like I remember like
and then afterwards we're gonna go watch Grave of the Fireflies. Yay!
Oh my. Like I remember seeing Shrek when I was 10 years old in theaters and you know they pan over in Lord Farquaad's bedroom and you see the mother bear as a rug on his floor and then he totally did something watching.
I was just gonna say that he had a boner. He looked down. He was like, like "Wow, that actually like, happened in a PG movie." Well, yeah, they earned its PG rating. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it was subtle enough, I guess, that it could be PG. But obviously, as a kid, I didn't get that. As an adult,
you gotta save your ass, you know.
But oh man, now Joe, what is your favorite genre of film?
Oh. You know, I always go in between this. You know, for me, I always love any genre. I feel like, you know, I've always had a leaning towards sci-fi because I feel like that really makes you think and really think about possibilities. You know, the way I look at this question, I often think about the genre that I have a harder time getting with, which was always fantasy for some reason, which is really ironic. But I think a lot of it comes with like storytelling, and it comes with rules. And I feel like with bad fantasy, you have to build up a lot of rules, and if you don't follow those rules, you basically have a lot of plot holes.
Mhm.
So I think that to me always comes down to like my least favorite, and it's probably going to come down to fantasy. Hope that answers the question.
Well, and that's interesting because it's like, like my favorite film of all time is a fantasy film. It's Lord of
Yeah,
the Rings,
yeah,
and there's not that many fantasy films in live action that are able to do the world building, craft a story, have these characters, and you just love it.
yeah,
Fantasy is so hard to make work because a lot of the times you have to create a whole new world for people. Because like in most films, at least you can understand we're in the world and
yeah,
we get human like our world's rules and everything like that.
yeah.
But like science fiction, you could do so many different things. And it's
Right.
you have and like obviously you could have the cop out of like how does this even work? It's like, well, it's technology that hasn't been made yet.
Yeah, like it goes back to that line in The Simpsons, where Xena, the actress Lucy Lawless, is in a convention and all the fans are asking her, you know, all these questions, and then she goes, worst case scenario, if I don't have an answer, all I'll say is a wizard did it, and she asks the question, she's like, a wizard did it, a wizard did it, you know, a wizard did
Oh, Wizard did it.
it.
And it could be such a cop out, but and I think animation works so well with fantasy because you can create a whole new world and like you don't have to have a bunch of people dressed up and like look like they're cosplay
Yeah,
to
man.
make it work.
No,
And
because I think I always think back to an interview Mike Judge had,
Mhm.
the creator of Beavis and Butthead. Um,
Oh,
yeah, basically. Looking forward to that new movie coming out. Paramount Plus is getting him to make a reboot and a movie, so I'm looking forward to that. But anyways, I always
something.
think back. I always think back to what he said in an interview, how he wouldn't be able to make certain movies, right? In live action, but in animation, you could pretty much do it with a smaller budget and a smaller scale. If you want action or explosions or create reactions, you could literally create it yourself.
Well, and that's so interesting because one of his most famous works is King of the Hill, which is
Yep.
like, did this even need to be animated?
But a part of
But
that, though, is like the beauty of the show, because there are little moments here and there where the actual using it in animation makes it 10 times better. But it is a very standard show that you would not imagine being animated. But then at the same time, that's actually what gives it a lot of appeal and makes it one of the best adult
Mhm.
animated series ever made.
Yeah, I love King of the Hill.
Me
And
too,
just
man.
like I think with animation, you could just get fully engrossed in who these characters are.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're not looking at like Hank Hill and thinking, oh, that's that actor. It's Hank Hill. And it's Hank Hill and like propane accessories. And just like some of my accounts on certain things are Rusty Shackelford.
Oh,
Because
it's so funny you say that, because I was like listening to an interview, and the guy who was doing the interview is named Jeff Shackelford, and I'm thinking, wow, any relation?
Rusty Shackelford. You'll
I
never
don't ever get my birth certificate. Pocket sand.
Pocket Sanchez. Ah! Oh man. Now I want to watch King of the Hill. Now, now Joe, who's your favorite filmmaker?
It's such a cliche to say my favorite film is Raging Bull, but it is true that my favorite filmmaker would be Martin Scorsese. But I actually would. Was that your De Niro face for a little bit? Oh, he totally did a De Niro face. A little bit of Clint Eastwood though. You always rock the Clint Eastwood look. There you go.
Just
But
squint at everybody.
But you know what? When thinking about filmmakers, right, you think about how filmmaker is a collaborative process.
Mhm.
And, I'm going to get a lot of hate for saying this, but this is like my controversial opinion that people will disagree with me on. But you know what? My favorite filmmaker is Seth MacFarlane. And I'll tell you why. Here you got a guy who basically came from nothing in Rhode Island on the East Coast,
Mhm.
talented actor, talented animator, artist, and musician, who basically worked his way to becoming like one of the biggest filmmakers out there. And people say he's like a really nice guy. I mean, he comes across like being a bit of a douche, but like when it comes to like the things he does, he's always working, and I always have a fondness for that. And that's actually why Martin Scorsese was always like my favorite director, and I'll stand by that. He's my favorite director. But in actuality, if we're talking about making movies and TV and entertainment, you know, I think Seth MacFarlane has always been. I always had a fondness for him because, you know, there's so much that you can do. And since we're talking about animation before, about creating your own worlds, I mean, that's pretty much what he did as his entryway to getting into the entertainment business, you know?
It's like, who hasn't watched Family Guy?
Exactly. I was literally just watching 5 clips this morning.
It's just like, who hasn't quoted Family Guy at some point? And it's just like, The Simpsons set the stage for Fox Animation to just be like,
yeah,
Sunday night on Fox is still a thing.
It is still a thing, and you can thank Matt Groening for that.
Yeah, and every Monday on Hulu, I watch Bob's Burgers the next day, and I'm watching The Great North, trying that one out. But like,
good, bad, what would you say?
Here's the thing. It's like, I have to think back to like first 2 seasons of Bob's Burgers to think like it didn't always click. And organically over time, that has just become like one of the most consistent and just funny and relatable and endearing shows that I watch. And you can see glimpses of that in like Central Park and The Great North, because they're both from the creators of Bob's Burgers. And I'm like, I'm willing to give Great North a chance. And like, I enjoy the voice cast a lot because like you can't go wrong with Nick Offerman. You can't go wrong with Alanis Morissette being a character in your show and just being like this giant, like ethereal Alanis Morissette in the Alaskan sky. And you're just like,
so she's playing God again, basically, like in Dogma.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome.
And it's just so weird. And it's just like Jenny Slate's in it, Will Forte. And just like, it's a fun cast. It's a weird show, but like,
weird is good.
Yeah, I love Bob's Burgers so much. And like, you had King of the Hill for all those years. You had The Simpsons. You have Family Guy, American Dad, and just like, that's something special. And like, I appreciate your answer because usually most people answer with a director, but I purposely don't put who's your favorite director because I want to leave it open in case like, one of my favorite filmmakers is Taylor Sheridan.
Yeah.
And up until more recently, he was just a writer and creator, but like, I loved his stories.
Yeah, not to mention too, like, you know, it's a collaborative process. You know, or I was surprised you didn't say Roger Deakins for a while. You were talking about how Roger Deakins was your boy, you know.
The amount of love that I send Roger Deakins' way on Welcome to the Wasteland whenever I'm talking about Coen Brothers film, because like their first 3 films, it's Barry Sonnenfeld is their cinematographer. And then you watch Barton Fink, and then something just, it's Deakins. And you're just like, you could watch Barton Fink and just like, this is Roger Deakins.
And the funny thing is that, you know, even Roger Deakins doing like, you know, basic movies, like basic family films at some point, still have an edge and still have a glow, and you still remember it, you know.
Rango.
There you go.
He did the cinematography on Rango.
Yeah.
And it looks like a Deakins movie, and you're just like, I can see this. And apparently him and Gore Verbinski are going to do a film together again.
Yeah.
I'm just like, yes. Because Rango has no business being anywhere as good as it is, but I love every second of it.
I think Gore Verbinski needs a turn around. I think he needs something. The last thing we've seen him was the one with Harry Osborn.
Yeah, Cure for Wellness.
Cure for Wellness.
That had so much creepy potential, and then it just jumped the shark.
I always like to think of Gore Verbinski as like David Fincher, right? But with like a less of an edge as David Fincher is, right?
Well, and it's interesting because it's like, yes, he's made the Pirates movies. Think back to At World's End. How weird is that movie?
Very weird. Crabs lifting ships and giant Calypso.
The locker sequence in that film is one of the weirdest things I've seen in a movie. And then
Yeah.
you have no wonder why Rango is as weird as it is.
Basically.
It feels like a fever dream, the whole entire movie. And you're like, this is for kids? Because I don't know if kids like this, but I love this.
It's like, hey man, Disney, I'm getting that Disney money. I'm gonna do what I want.
Well, and that's the thing too, because like there's certain filmmakers that I can appreciate. Like, do I love their work? Necessarily not, but like I appreciate how ambitious they are in their vision of things. Gore Verbinski, even like Cure for Wellness, is a beautiful and creepy film, even though it makes no sense. And Dane DeHaan is not a leading actor that I give about in that movie at all.
I mean, I liked him in Chronicle, but it was really hard for me to like keep going. And I feel bad because I feel like with some actors, when you get that one really big role and then you have like basically a string of movies right afterwards, you're basically like everybody's expecting you to do just as well as you did in Chronicle, and it kind of like typecasted him for a while to do these crazy things. And then he tried to be a leading man, and then that didn't work out. It's
Which he's not. That's the thing. He is not your stereotypical leading man, and that's the
he's
issue.
not stereotypical, right?
Because Valerian, which that movie bonkers, but he's supposed to be like a Han Solo type.
Yeah,
doesn't work at all.
Yeah, I don't see him as being a Han Solo type at all.
No. And then Cure for Wellness, he's supposed to be like this douchey businessman. And I'm like, I'm watching this film, I'm like, I should be seeing like an Army Hammer or somebody like that, which that would have been interesting with you throwing some cannibalism.
Oh, right.
But like, it doesn't work. But obviously we went down this rabbit hole, but like, that's the thing. It's like, it is a collaborative process, and there's so many people moving pieces in different films. And like, yes, I am a huge fan of cinematography, and I appreciate you bringing up Roger Deakins, and then I can...
My man.
Now, shifting gears to in front of the camera, who is your favorite actor?
Oh my gosh. You know, when I was a kid, I loved Jim Carrey. I know this is like the weirdest answer to give you, straight up the answer, but like, when I was a kid, I always loved Jim Carrey because I always thought it was so cool to see him as both, you know, a goofball who can go 120 on anything he does, on whether it be serious or whether it be goofy. But, you know, I felt the same way about Robin Williams, you know, rest his soul. You know, to me, it's a toss-up between Jim Carrey and Robin Williams.
Well, and both of them, the range in what they can do, because, and it's interesting because you have dramatic actors that are amazing dramatic actors, but can they do comedy?
Yeah.
And there's a few that I like low-key absolutely love. Ray Fiennes in Grand Budapest Hotel, because you do not expect this amazing comedic performance out of him, and he's just amazing. But like, that's so rare for like I can't imagine Daniel Day-Lewis being in a comedy.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Like,
I mean, he had like moments of like humor every once in a while, but like he's so specific about what he chooses, and dark,
intense, kind of humor,
like my soul.
Yeah, but like comedians, you can act like Adam Sandler. Like, dude can act. He just chooses not to. Like, he just chooses to get paid a shit ton of money by Netflix to make dumbass movies. But like, look at Uncut Gems. Like, he has that in him.
He has it in him, but it's like he chooses to do it because, like you said, you know, he gets to. Everybody's got to go on vacation. I do love how shameless he is about it too, because it's like if he's happy, and you know he's happy, and there's something like, you know, just admirable about that. You know, he's a dude.
Well, he's living the life he wants to live, and who can fault him for that? He gets paid a shit ton of money to go on vacation with all of his friends.
There you go. And he had a wonderful speech about that at the Indie Awards when he won for Uncut Gems.
Oh my God, that speech was amazing. It's like he thanks he's like real person Adam Sandler, and he's like, okay, now I have a speech, and he takes on like, hello, my name is Adam Sandler, and when I walked up to these two homeless rabbis, and then they told me they were the Safdie brothers, and I'm just I lost it. I watched that acceptance speech over and over and over again.
And it's really funny because afterwards, I actually did watch interviews with the Safdie brothers, and they are characters in their own right.
Yeah.
You could see them making good times, and you could see them making uncut gems.
Yeah, because like Robin Williams has, I think, just as many memorable dramatic film performances as comedic, because it's like you have, like, obviously he brings his own personality into it, but like
Right.
you have Good Morning Vietnam, Dead Poets Society, Goodwill
Good
Hunting,
Will Hunting, yeah.
1 Hour Photo, and Insomnia are much more creepy kinds of performances that really feel outside the box for him. But like he was just a presence in anything. And like Aladdin, like the genie is the genie because of Robin Williams. And he
If
just,
we want to bring it full circle to what we were talking about before, he knows exactly how awesome it would be to see his comedy routine in animation. It's like, you remember that scene in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 when Peter finds out he gets powers, and the first thing he says, "I'm gonna do some weird shit." That's basically Robin Williams as the genie.
Yeah. And you have Jim Carrey because, like, obviously, like 1994 was a year for Jim Carrey between Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. And like I can quote When Nature Calls way too much. like every time I'm driving, I want to just burst into hi ho chitty chitty bang bang chitty chitty bang bang, we love you. And like every time you drive into a parking spot or parallel park, like a glove, and it just works. But
what was that line he said when it comes to like him dating the girl? It's like chikaka or something like that.
It's like there's that music every time that music cue pops up in Nature Calls. It's so ridiculous. But then you have the Truman Show, and I think that changed a lot of people's perception of Jim Carrey.
And how relevant is it today?
The Truman Show, I think, is one of the most underappreciated movies and lasting classics because like that movie is too real.
Not only that, like the last scene, right, is one thing, and the movie could have ended, but there's literally 3 lines that changes the whole perspective of the movie. You know, you're expecting him to like have a happy ending, get the girl, and then everybody is, gonna be like, yeah, Truman gets what he wants, and then the last line is, "What's on TV? What else is on?" It leaves you with that uncomfortable moment where it's like it's just mindless entertainment.
On to the next thing.
On to the next thing. This man's life, his literal life, his struggle, his depression, his grief is just mindless entertainment. How messed up is that?
And him, Ed Harris as Kristoff, this guy directing this whole thing, he's fantastic.
I am the creator of the show.
Yeah, and like that moment there was like, and if I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And he just, it's so beautiful. But speaking of WandaVision, that has so many Truman Show.
The first thing, we were talking about this before we jumped on, where I hope you guys don't mind if we go into like spoiler. I mean, this is episode 5, so it is what it is. Like the moment when spoilers. Long story short, when Vision finds out that he's in a TV show and he's flipping out, didn't you think about the Coco commercial where he's like, "What are you doing?"
Well, and that's the thing too, because it's like it's such a the way that it deals with reality is so amazing. And you as somebody who I watched the Truman Show years ago and own it and have watched it so many times since then, sitting and watching WandaVision, I'm like, there's fingerprints of Truman Show all over this. And I don't think there would be a WandaVision idea if it weren't for the Truman Show.
I agree.
And
I mean, that movie is still relevant today when it comes to people's realities and even social media too, where it's like everybody gets to be this big Instagram star just by showing their life, you know? And it becomes a whole nother subculture of it too. You
Mhm.
know, it really makes you think about that, especially as someone that produces content for the internet. It's like, geez, it's like, how much do I want to paint? Because then I don't know if you ever experience this, right? If you ever get it in the comments section, but like there's people that want to know about your life. And you're like, I don't do that. That this is entertainment. This is not my
Mhm.
life. And I think that's actually one of the things that like maybe like I don't know how much I'm gonna be posting videos on YouTube, you know.
Well, as we film a video for my YouTube channel,
As we film it for YouTube.
and like, I think about it, and it's just like, I mention things about my life, and obviously, when you're talking about art, things are going to connect in different
Of
ways, and you'll
course.
make connections to your life. But like, there's aspects of my life that have nothing to do with movies,
Exactly.
and I don't talk about them a whole lot on here. Like,
Right.
this isn't my full time job. I have
Right.
a full time job and a
There you
part
go.
time job on top
Yeah.
of all the side gig stuff that I do.
Yeah.
But like,
Like most average Americans, I
yeah,
stand as well.
not many people make money off of this and actually get a living out of this, but it's so
Right.
interesting. And before we move on to the next question, just to finish off talking about Jim Carrey,
Yeah.
something that's also so relevant is his show Kidding on Showtime. And
I gotta
it's
catch
also
up with
one
this
of
thing.
those darker, dramatic performances for Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
And I appreciate it so much. But I'll be the first one to tell you, I was geeking out watching Sonic the Hedgehog, being like, this is 90s Jim Carrey all over again. And
Yeah.
I'm enjoying every second Robotnik's on screen in this movie.
Oh yeah. No,
Like,
it was yeah. Ditto.
he made the movie for me because, like, the rest of it's a fine little silly movie, but like Jim Carrey is on a neck, like he was on a whole different level in this movie.
There's a good chance the movie would have still been entertaining if even if they kept that really crappy design the first time.
Mhm.
I feel like that really changed the way people viewed that movie was the fact that they actually listened to what people wanted
Yeah,
out
because
of it and knew that they could make that change, then do it. But you know, ultimately Jim Carrey really elevated it to being more than just a standard kids movie, you know?
yeah, and that's Jim Carrey,
Yeah,
and it made
man.
me happy to see that
Magical being.
because he hadn't done that in years, like being that Jim Carrey, and it was fun, and I enjoy both those kinds of Jim Carrey. So
I do too, man.
now,
He's
Joe,
great.
what's a movie that you could watch literally every day?
Oh man, the desert island question. I've had to think
Ah,
about this for a
more or
really,
less.
really more or less. You know, the funny thing is, it's like with movies, right? You get a story, and then it has to be a story you're watching over and over and over again. Is it a cop out if I give you a TV show instead?
You know what? This is my show. I make the rules. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
So for me, it's like with a movie, right? And you're watching it over and over and over again. Sometimes, you know, you could pick out so many things, and it's like you can live by certain movies, and that's what it is. But for me, TV shows give you a little bit more with that. And, you know, I would say I'm probably on my 12th viewing of Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And I could watch that all the time. Seriously, I from 2009 until 2021, I've been watching that show nonstop. Isn't that messed up?
oh man. And I have to get back around to it. I'm like 6 seasons in.
Mm-hmm.
These people are so despicable. So despicable. But you
Horrible.
can't help but love every second they're on screen. Cause like Danny DeVito does not get enough credit for being endlessly entertaining.
Oh my gosh.
And like I
The
was
man
watching,
loves what he does.
yeah, I
And we
watched
love him for it.
I watched Friends for the first time ever a couple of months ago, watched all 10 seasons of it. And Danny DeVito pops up in like a last season episode, and it's absolute like just imagine Danny DeVito as an aging stripper. Like who cast that? But it worked.
You know, I can imagine like, you know, the writer's room, they're like, you know what, we're hitting a wall right now. Can we get Danny DeVito to just do something?
Yeah.
God knows what it is. And he comes out, does a stripping routine.
Well, and it's
Let's write
funny
around that.
because I keep seeing Glenn Howerton popping up in other things.
Yeah.
And like I watched AP Bio. That show's hilarious.
I
And
need to finish that up. I heard too. I think it's on Peacock, right?
yeah, it's on Peacock.
Okay.
And like he was a villain in a Joe Manganiello sci-fi film that I watched last year at some point. What the hell was that called?
The Hunt?
No, it was I'm trying to remember what it was, but like it took me until the end of the movie and I took a good look at him. I'm like, is that Dennis? I'm just like,
He really gets down creepy characters.
oh, the Dennis method. And what's even better is the Mac method. What's even better than the Mac method
Is
is the Frank method.
the Frank method, which is to just come in for the scraps. He's
The
great.
scraps
He's like a
are the
mantis.
scraps.
The scraps. I come in for the scraps. You should see him. He's like a mantis. Ooh, I like that. Mantis.
Oh my god. And
my wad of 20s and my Magnum condoms. I'm ready to go.
and like I love Mystic Quest on Apple TV
I do
Plus
too.
from Mac. Like that's such a like
It's a deeper show too, and it's more there is a story to Always Sunny, but this one actually has a legitimately focused story, and it actually makes me interested in a genre, in a not genre, but like a lifestyle I never really got into, which is, you know, role-playing video games.
Yeah.
You know, RPGs.
Mm-hmm. But like Always Sunny, that is definitely something that you could just throw on and just endlessly
Always.
watch because they're so ridiculous.
Always.
The whole I think
I'm always watching Always Sunny.
one of the most recent episodes that I think I watched was the Philly World Series episode where they couldn't find the car.
No, that's a great one, especially for Philadelphia fans. It took me a while to realize that the Philly fanatic is not the frenetic, as they have it due to licensing reasons. And then out of like a very minor ad lib, Charlie breaks the fourth wall and acknowledges that.
Well, and it's so great because like I grew up 10 minutes from Philadelphia. I'm from South Jersey. I'm like, we're basically a suburb of Philadelphia. And that show's so on point. And that whole controversy with President Trump saying things about Philadelphia and just like, don't do that.
Things happen in Philadelphia. You could literally pan out to the black screen going, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what the 15th season's going to be like. With
I don't, and it's just going to keep going. This show's going to go on forever, and I'm glad because it's ridiculous. But now, Joe, what's a film that you could have a close connection to because it relates to another interest of yours?
You know, I think about this a lot too, and I feel like the beauty of film is that this could really apply to a lot of movies. I think the movies that really stick to me are the ones that really, you know, get me to really think about what I'm doing, how I'm doing it. And sometimes this always changes. So like I really don't have one specific answer for it. Like I mentioned how like Raging Bull applied to me and it became like a life-changing moment for me for like, you know, wanting to take something seriously in my life and to change the way I think about certain things. But you know, I really feel like when it comes to like a film that relates to another interest, right? To something in my life and applies to like another interest in my life. You know, I mentioned this to you earlier. COVID's got me playing golf a lot, and you know, sometimes really bad movies, like even really dumb ones, can really apply to certain interests. And as dumb and bad and horrible as this movie is, Tin Cup is actually something that kind of sits with me for a really long time. With Kevin Costner just playing like this asshole golf pro who goes into the U.S. Open somehow, some way. Because like you could tell with golf movies, and I was actually thinking about this because I wanted to make a video about it before too. But the problem with golf movies is, what genre do we take it? Do we make it a comedy like Caddyshack? Do we make it a biopic about someone's life? And like sometimes you get good movies that do that. Happy Gilmore for starters.
Yeah.
Then you know Disney's The Greatest Game Ever Played. I think is a pretty decent effort in its own right. But this was like the one golf movie that I felt like was made by golfers, because they pick up on all the little things that golfers do and the idiosyncrasies that people take for granted, like it being an elitist sport versus just being, you know, something that brings people together when it comes to like just hooking up with people on the driving range or just getting drunk on 18 holes in a public course. I feel like that kind of applies to that interest in facets in my life, you know.
And that's interesting. And I have to say this because this got me so excited. It was the 25th anniversary of Happy Gilmore.
Oh my gosh, I
And
know.
Adam Sandler did a little video. And I feel so bad. I can't remember the actor's name, but Shooter
It's
did
Shooter
one.
McGavin, yeah, McDonald, something Chris
Yeah.
McDonald.
They both did a video, and now there's rumors going around that they might do a senior circuit sequel. I'm just like, no.
I think that'd be really cool, but I actually think I'm more excited about, because if you watch golf as much as I do, Capital One sponsors an event where basically it's like a pro-am where like the professionals and like celebrity amateurs play with them. And the last one was Charles Barkley, Phil Mickelson, and Peyton Manning and Stephen Curry. But right now, basically, the actor who plays Shooter wants to play Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson with Happy Gilmore. The problem with that, though, unfortunately, is due to the accident Tiger Woods had.
Yeah.
But that seems to be the big rumor going around now, and I'm actually more excited about seeing that on television to see how that would turn out.
Oh, it's hilarious you brought up Charles Barkley, too, because it's just like...
Believe it or not, that man has a horrible swing. And if
Sure
you've seen as long as I have... Oh, you've seen the swing, right?
Yes,
It's like he calls it a yip, a nervous breakdown or something. Like he gets a nervous tick or something. Like that is like a boo.
But Peyton Manning, though.
Oh my gosh.
Love Peyton.
Good round, though.
Love Peyton Manning. Now, Joe, and I'll leave this open to like a film or TV show character that you feel like you connect with on a personal level.
You know, it's funny because like I really see myself as an eccentric, impulsive person. So like when it comes to like characters that are really impulsive and really just spur of the moment, almost like they're like really eccentric characters. I think that's why Jim Carrey is like one of my favorite actors of all time, is because he plays a lot of impulsive, eccentric characters.
Yeah.
Those always tend to be the ones that I relate to the most, the ones that I think about the most. You know, as I'm answering this question, you know, ironically, I think back to a really good character that really connected with me on a deep level, which was Robin Williams' character in Good Will Hunting. You know, and for years I have put off seeing that movie because I had no idea what that movie was about, how I could watch it. But I was told in a session once to go check out Good Will Hunting, and I'm really glad that I did, because you basically, for starters, you know, if we're talking about a movie that like breaks down barriers and stigma of mental health, I feel like that's the movie to do it, because it's really just a counseling session with two guys, right? No stigma of mental health being a problem. And if anything, that kind of actually becomes the point of the movie, which is that, you know, coming into counseling because you're perceived as a bad person versus just a misunderstood person, it really changes the whole dynamic of it as well. And you have this vessel, which is, you know, good, you know, which is his character, who does some unethical things, obviously, as a therapist, that I would not recommend any other clinician to do. But, you know, for other moments, there's some really deep, insightful moments that I really think a lot of therapists and clinicians, social workers, and psychologists can get out of watching that movie.
And I feel like it kind of gets around that idea, because it's like, I don't think, like, he's not a practicing physician, and like, I don't think he had any, like, obviously, having seen that film quite a few times, at that point, I don't think Stellan Skarsgård's character really wanted to find like a traditional counselor at that point, because obviously,
well, he tried, and basically they were just guys who were all talking out of their ass or even doing hypnosis. You know?
And he just kept messing with them, and those parts are hilarious.
Not to mention it blew my mind that Stellan Skarsgård was in a movie in the '90s, because I really thought he had his big break with Pirates of the Caribbean.
It was like, I didn't think you could possibly be younger than 50.
I know, he actually looked like Alex, his son.
Well, it's so interesting as Alexander Skarsgård keeps getting older, and I see him in more things. I'm just like, oh my god,
is that going to happen to Bill?
And he sounds like, I'm just like, wait a minute,
what is going on?
Well, and I know Stellan Skarsgård was in the original Insomnia.
Yes.
And before, like, Nolan remade an American remake, and you had Al Pacino.
William.
And it's like,
oh, for people at home, Shane, could you show them your wonderful Heat impression? Come on.
I got a great ass, and your head so far up it.
Yes. Yes. That's gonna get you 10,000 views, by the way.
And he's like, "What am I? I'm an owl. Who?" And one of my favorite moments in that movie is because, like, he's obviously not a great husband, and he's distant. He's not there for his wife, and it turns out she's cheating on him, and he doesn't even care, honestly, at that point. But don't you dare watch his TV. It's like, you can sit in your ex-husband's house, but you're not watching my TV. And he just yells out and just like rips out the wall. And when he kicks it out of his car, he's just like on a whole different level. Oh man,
the greatest actors are the ones where you could just see them doing that, like just doing what they would do on average. You know, like just that's just their personality. That's just who they are.
Al Pacino, but
God bless that man, Mr. Dunkachino. I went there. What's the time? Dunkachino.
Never watched Jack and Jill all the way through. I have seen.
Watch the Dunkachino scene.
To be fair, I did laugh at Al Pacino in that movie because he was just going out there, like the part where he's performing in like a Shakespearean play on stage and answers his phone, and in the middle of the performance. Al Pacino, why'd you do that movie? Don't know. Oh man.
Well, he did for the same reason Adam Sandler needed to go on vacation.
Yeah.
They were on a cruise though, so he got a free cruise out of it.
That's exactly why he needed a cruise. Now, Joe, what's a film that you love that you would think would surprise people?
You know, I mean, like, you look at me, I'm a pretty stereotypical movie nerd, so like I think, you know, you look at me and you could say that guy loves Raging Bull.
This guy
that guy would like watch a
Fast
Kurosawa movies. I'm sitting down, I'm probably not sitting down in my Adventure Time TV shirt and t-shirt going on. But I mean, like, you know, in actuality, you know, I do like basic mindless entertainment every once in a while. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if there's like a movie that I actually really like that no one would imagine me really liking, it's probably Drumline. Interesting. I could think about that. I could think about specific scenes. I could probably quote that movie too when it comes to Orlando Brown's character. A little bit of background if anybody hasn't seen the movie, but it's basically like you haven't. Oh my gosh, this is back in the day when you know, sports movies were really big, and like instead of sports movies, it's a drum line in a historically black college, which again, you probably wouldn't expect me to be a big fan of. But I mean, I actually go back to that movie a lot. This is back in like the early 2000s when hip hop was like the biggest boom, and I always go back to that movie every once in a while, and I'm like, I like Drumline. Nick Cannon is good. By the way, is in the movie as well too. He plays the head drummer who basically learns how to drum, and also a little bit also goes to my love for drumming, which I get from my dad, who was basically, he had his own, you know, band for weddings and bar mitzvahs and stuff, and he basically had his own band. He was the drummer, so I think that's partially why I really love that movie too. It's got little things about being a drummer that I kind of relate
next to you
dad.
Personally too.
Yeah, and I take personally, yeah.
We're adding layers to some of these questions.
There you go, like Shrek. I appreciate it.
It's like cakes have layers. Ogres are not like cakes.
Now people look at me and they see I relate to Nick Cannon, obviously. No, I'm just kidding.
I relate to Shrek.
There you go.
It's like ogres are like onions. What, they make people cry?
No. They stink?
They stink? They shrivel up and grow little white hairs in the sun? They have layers. Oh, they have layers. Man, I'm like, if you watch I Am Legend and Will Smith just starts quoting Shrek, like word for word.
I am Will Smith in that scene. And that's you too.
God, we did that at my birthday. My last birthday party before all this happened was we just sat there quoting Shrek.
One day, Shane, once we get our vaccines done, we get that taken care of, we're going to have a big Shrek fest, you know?
Shrek is love.
Shrek is life. Shrek is life. Which, by the way, another little plug for myself is if you ever go on YouTube and look up Shrek Retold, I actually make a little bit of a cameo in that with a scene that I hand animated myself and did the voices for. Yep. Did you know that?
You all go check that out because I am.
There you go. It's bizarre. Let's just put it to you that way.
That is okay. Now, Joe, I have one last question for you. What do you love most about movies?
You know what, Shane? For me, what I love the most about movies is that, and I kind of said it earlier with Raging Bull, is that like a really good piece of art or a really good piece of storytelling, at the end of the day, if you have something that really relates to you and really gets you thinking, it really gets you to see the world in a new light, in a new way, then it's done its job. And, you know, whether it be the whole scene or like the whole movie, I think that's what brings me to my love for film, is that it really relates to you on a personal level. Mm-hmm. And it really gets you to think and maybe even makes you a better person by the end of it. Hopefully not a worse person, because there are movies that probably do that. Like, you know, I don't know judgments there, but I mean, like,
Fight Club.
I'm sure. There you go.
Joker.
Well, that's what the media tried to say that it would do, but actually did the complete opposite. Now it's being quoted in Zack Snyder's Justice League, not even being quoted on purpose.
We live in a society. But anyway, so I appreciated your answer, Joe, because like when a film can do that and make that impact, and I don't know why, but you know me well enough that I have references running through my head all the time. And it just made me think of Daredevil, the Netflix show. When Wilson Fisk is standing in front of that painting and you see him for the first time, he's just like, it makes me feel alone. And if you could look at a movie and it makes you feel so connected, like that painting made Wilson Fisk feel, you know it did its job.
Amen, brother. I got nothing else. Got nothing else to say. Ditto.
Now, Joe, this is the part of the show where my guest gets to ask the Wasteland Reviewer a question. So what is your question?
This is a personal question, if you don't mind, but when are we going to hang out again?
So, as in Zoom or in person?
Well, we're gonna have more Zoom sessions. Like we're gonna talk more.
Yes, I'm gonna get a group text together because you, Matt, and myself need to hang out, and we'll figure out Joe coming on to one of the shows that I have on here too, if you want. And we definitely need to hang out, so we'll definitely set something up.
Probably didn't expect that type of question, but I mean, in actuality, I mean, you're a really cool dude.
Aw, I miss you, Joe. And that's been such a weird thing too during all of this. It's like COVID has been in many ways, so like I am an introvert in the sense that social interactions drain me. Yeah. And I do need to recharge, but I love people, which is the hardest thing about being an introvert in that way, because most people are just like, you're an introvert, like you don't want to go out and see people. I want to. It just takes a lot out of me. But
not to mention, no, it's like it's the relations. It's like when you're hanging out with somebody, you know, and you have a really deep, meaningful relationship. That's
sometimes you have a deep conversation that's just gonna be like zoop. But like COVID, even for myself, it's like I feel like I even started doing this specifically so I could reconnect with people. Yeah. Because I felt like I kind of been even less out there seeing people that like even on like Zoom and stuff like that than before. Cause it's just like, you know, it's like you're anxious about things and you're trying to be careful and deal with all this stuff. But like, honestly, and it's interesting because you talked about this. I know our friend Matt talked about this about movies. It's like a lot of people just haven't been seeing movies because of all of this. Cause like you're not going out to the theaters and stuff. I've done the opposite. 2020 was this year that I seen the most new films in any year.
Right.
But it's because it's like I just dove right into virtual cinema and have been lost in there for a long time. But I definitely want to start getting to the point where it's like, because like I go into the weekend, I'm like, how many movies can I watch this weekend? And I want to start getting into like, who am I going to see this weekend? And like actually have human interactions again.
I
So we'll
understand.
definitely hang out. And I appreciate you bringing that up because like I feel like anybody watching this can definitely relate to the fact that it's just like this past year, because it's been a year, has been
No,
strange.
right? It's by next week, I think would be a whole year.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure the last movie I saw in theaters was I Still Believe. And if I don't look up the date, I'm pretty sure it was like March 14th. Because like things just started shutting down and it's been this.
Birds of Prey. Birds of
Well,
Prey was the last one, and that's the worst note to leave on.
that weekend I saw Bloodshot, The Hunt, and I Still Believe. And
Oh
I'm just
wow,
like,
what a
at
great
that
list.
point, the big highlights of the movies in 2020 were Emma, which I adore. I love that little film. The Gentleman, I love the hell out of that movie. And I've watched it again since. I've watched Emma again since, but like it's been so weird. But we'll definitely hang out again soon, Joe.
Nice, I got him.
We need to have like a watch party, watch a movie together,
Well, we're
everybody.
probably gonna have to do Shrek now since we've been talking about it to death.
Yes, exactly. But Joe, thank you for coming on
Thank
to Lost in the Wasteland, and thank all of you out there for always supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.